Good evening, Tewksbury. It is 6:02 p.m. on Thursday, April 15th, 2021. I'd like to call this meeting of the Tewksbury Board of Health to order. First on the agenda tonight, since this is the first meeting after the town's municipal election that was held last Saturday, my regulations are required to hold the annual election of officers, at which time we'll elect the chair, vice chair, and clerk. So as we've done in the past, we go from chair on downwards to vice chair and then to clerk.
I'm going to make a nomination for Ray Barry as chair as the highest vote total in this year's annual election.
Okay, so I'd like to second the motion.
I would like to second that motion that Ray Berry remains chair.
Okay, motion's been put forth and seconded for Ray Barry to be chair. We'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Scarano?
Yay.
Dr. Bichetti?
Yay.
Mr. Rue?
Yay.
And Ms. Arulis?
Yay.
And chair abstains, or the former chair abstains, so that passes for nothing, so thank you.
Do you accept?
I accept. Had a little of a thought, but I accept. Vice chair. I'd like to make a nomination for someone for vice chair. Okay, I look at nominating Robert Scarano as vice chair.
I will second the motion.
Okay. So motion's been put forth and seconded to nominate Robert Scarano as vice chair. And Mr. Scarano, are you interested?
I am.
Okay. So we'll take a verbal roll call vote for that. Dr. Bichetti?
Yay.
Mr. Rue?
Yay.
Ms. Arulis?
Yay.
And chair votes aye as well. So that carries 4-0 with Mr. Scarano abstaining. And final position is clerk. So Ms. Arulis, are you interested in being nominated as clerk again?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So someone like to make a motion?
I so nominate Mr. Rolis.
Okay. And someone like to second the motion?
I can second that.
Okay. Motion's been put forth and seconded to nominate Ms. Arulis for clerk. All those in favor signify by stating aye. We'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Scarano?
Yay.
Mr. Rue?
Yay.
Dr. Bichetti?
Yay.
And chair votes aye as well. So congratulations, Maria, you're clerk again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. And that's a good segue into the next item, approval of minutes that the clerk and I have both reviewed. Does anyone have any comments or edits for the meeting minutes from our March meeting?
Vice Chair has to abstain.
Okay.
Nothing here.
Okay. Dr. Bichetti?
Nothing here.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Someone like to second the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. So motion's been put forth and second to approve the minutes of our March 18th, 2021 meeting as submitted. All those in favor will signify by stating aye. We'll do another verbal roll call vote with Mr. Scrono abstaining. Mr. Rue,
Yay.
Dr. Bichetti,
Yay.
Mr. Rulis,
Yay.
and chair votes aye as well. So that carries 4-0 unanimous. Excellent. New business. And where it is the first meeting after the election, the other piece of business we have to do on an annual basis is to reappoint both health agents and special health agents. So first we have to appoint Shannon Sullivan as Director of Public Health and Michelle Grant as Sanitarian. Would someone so choose to make a motion for the reappointment of both individuals?
I make a motion to reappoint both Shannon and the health agent respectively as situated at the end of this election cycle.
Okay. Someone like to second the motion?
I will
I'll
second
second
that.
it. Oh, sorry.
Motion's been put forth and seconded. We'll take a verbal roll call vote. Mr. Scarano,
Yay.
Dr. Bichetti,
Yay.
Mr. Rue,
Yay.
and Mr. Rulis.
Yay.
Okay. So both have been reappointed as health agents, and then moving on to the annual reappointment of special health agents. We have Irvi Agawala as public health nurse, Ron Beauregard, tobacco control, Denise Graffio, town clerk for burial permits, Pamela Thomas, Tewksbury animal inspector / agent, Christine Guillateri, Tewksbury animal inspector, Ashley Chamel, Tewksbury animal inspector, Casey Smith, Tewksbury animal inspector, and Maria Ruggiero, special agent. So I'd like to make a motion to reappoint all those as special health agents.
I'll make a
motion to approve all of them as special agents. I apologize for the delay.
Okay. Someone like to second the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Motion's been put forth and second to approve the reappointment of special health agents as read off. Again, take another verbal roll call vote. Mr. Scarano,
Yay.
Dr. Bichetti,
Yay.
Mr. Rue,
Yay.
and Mr. Rulis.
Yay.
Chair votes aye as well, so motion carries unanimously 5-0. So all those folks have been reappointed as special health agents. Next item on the agenda had been 566 Clark Street for tying into town sewer, but Director Sullivan informed me this afternoon that that property now has been tied into town sewer, so they do not need to come before us tonight. So I have
Make
Go
a
ahead.
motion to excuse them from appearing.
Okay. So someone like to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been put forth and second to excuse the property owner of 566 Clark Street from coming before the board tonight. We will take a roll call vote. Mr. Scarano,
Yay.
Dr. Bichetti,
Yay.
Mr. Rue,
Yay.
and Mr. Rulis.
Yay.
Chair votes aye as well, so that motion carries unanimously 5-0. Okay. The next three items are sort of, I'll read them off on the agenda. Updated mission statement, proposed changes to renewal of permits, and discussion on administrative and organizational regulations. Suffice to say, over the past 2 weeks or so has given me an opportunity to take a deep dive into our existing regulations and to see what we may need to do to add some changes to sort of tighten things up and be more specific. So let me just briefly talk in the updated mission statement. Mr. Skro and I had a conversation, I think it was on Monday, Bob, about at the annual meeting, it's always a good time to sort of review the mission statement. And what I've also been looking at and going through the regulations is that we have Board of Health and Health Department tend to be used interchangeably. And even at the state level, they make reference to Board of Health. So in looking at other towns' websites, what I'd like to have us consider do is to provide a little textual description on both the Board of Health webpage as well as the Health Department webpage that distinctly lists the area responsibilities that both have. And on the Board of Health page, that would be a good place to have the mission statement because a lot of towns' pages have their mission statement listed there. So tonight we're not going to have a mission statement to review. We'll need to work on that, but I just wanted to brief everyone that my goal would be to have that all set for us to vote on at the next meeting. The next thing I want to look at is and trying to bring, as we're looking at proposed changes to renewal of permits, that's a broad topic. And one part of it is that in looking at our permits and fee schedule, right now the tobacco sales permit application lists when that permit expires. And while we do have a separate permit expiration informational sheet on the Health Department's website, I thought it'd be good to bring clarity to everything that on the fee schedule, that next to any permit that does have an annual expiration date, that it be listed there, and as well on the specific application, if there is a regulatory-driven renewal date, that's listed there as well, so that whether it's a board member, whether it's a member of the public, or a permit holder, or a potential applicant, everyone is aware of when permits expire. So I'm just trying to work on improving the communication of that information to try to make it clearer for people when they need to renew. We also looking at making sure that we hold all permit holders to the legal required renewal dates. And so one of the things I just wanted to bring up for brief discussion tonight is, and I was looking at the Wilmington Board of Health's regulations, which Shannon sent you copies of, looking at just taking some of what they have done in their regulations. And one of the things that looking at is that historically, the department has, especially relates to the food establishment licenses or renewals, we tend to have some repeat offenders for those that renew at the very last moment. And so looking at, it's really the responsibility of the business owner to know when do they need to get their permits renewed. So looking at not having the department do all the constant reminders to those permit holders that the renewal is coming up. And then, as has been done in the past couple of years when Ms. Sawyer was director, that restaurants or food establishment permit holders that had not renewed would come before the board so that we would be able to sort of understand why there were, what circumstance leading to not renew. So looking at trying to make that more of a formal process moving forward and not to give people opportunity to just wait for us to keep sending reminders. As well, it's also, if we're going to be make some changes to the permits, it's also good for us to look at what other changes do we need to sort of make to the permits so we get them all in more of a standard format. One of the things I noticed that Wilmington had done specifically with their food establishment licenses and their frozen dessert permits was that they adopted the state codes as their local codes, and they exempted the very last piece, which was the penalty phase, and they inserted that into sort of their own food regulation section, where then they added other statements or requirements such as non-criminal disposition fines could be imposed by health agents if someone had not renewed on time or if there had been continuous issues with a permit holder throughout the course of the year. Because right now, as it stands, if someone or permit holder either were to unthinkably open up and operate a business without having a valid permit, we don't have the ability right now to issue any fines. The only thing we have for a remedy is to, upon conviction, a fine could be granted, but that involves town legal costs, and that's not a guaranteed thing, and that's a lengthy process. So just looking at how can we make sure that we have some teeth to enforcing both the state sanitary code as it relates to all the aspects. But here I was looking first at the food establishment and the frozen dessert licenses.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
and I think I've already spoken with you about this. I know I have to a couple of other people, but in my mind, if people are opening food establishments without permits, especially those people that have been open for many years that know the process, in my mind, there's a difference between a mistake and an intentional disregard for policy of public health, especially when it deals with food. You're talking about potentially dirty ice cream out there, and I'm not sure that fines have anything to do with anything other than if they don't have a permit to open, they shouldn't be open. And that's all I'm going to say because I can get ramped up on this real quick, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we actually had a meeting. That's why I invited Kevin Field and Rich Monturi to the meeting, because we did have a meeting with Chief Columbus as well as Richard and Kevin and Shan Michelle, just to go over what avenues does the health department have when trying to make sure that enforcement actions are carried out. And I think the challenge we have is that as things are written right now from the state code, if a business chooses to open without having the necessary permits, while they can be issued a cease and desist letter, and we've done cease and desist letters in other cases where upon a food inspection based on a complaint that the health department may have received, conditions were deemed critical enough that the director would issue a cease and desist, and in those cases the permit holder, the establishment owner, complied with that request. And we'd always follow up with an official cease and desist letter, and that would be posted in the door of the establishment. However, looking at everything and seeing, well, what happens if someone opted not to shut down. One of the things that we learned from Chief Columbus is that it's not within their power to shut such a business down. That in order for anything to happen, it has to move through the legal system. So it'd be the cease and desist letter to be given. If that was not abided by, then that would require the town, and Kevin, I'm not sure if that's you or someone from the police department, have to go down to Lowell District Court and file for an injunction. And then if the judge did find in our favor, as you had mentioned at that meeting, you could then ask the judge to specify that as part of the order, that the ability for the police to be able to shut down the business.
Hi, Ray.
So,
Hi,
Mr.
hi,
Chairman?
everyone. So good.
So I just want to make sure I stated that one clearly and correctly.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one other question?
Oh, hold on. I just want to make sure that, just want Mr. Feely to answer first, guys. I just want to make sure that I'm putting out the correct information.
Ray, yes, you said it fine. I would just clarify one point, that if we went into court looking for injunctive relief, what we would do is ask the judge to approve, as part of that injunctive relief, that the police would have the authority to enforce the order.
Okay.
So that's a
Kevin,
minor.
Okay, may I interject one thing, Kevin? Thank you very much, Tony Bichetti. My question is, we are the Board of Health, and what I would like to know, if we can incorporate these into our rules. I know we can enforce the state rules and become more strict. I would like to know, in the threat of an immediate public health concern, sometimes when you go through the legal process, there's time and there's imminent potential danger to the public in certain situations that can occur. That in order for someone to keep a business operating, pose the threat to the public. I am wondering if, from a legal standpoint, regardless of whether there's, if the permitting's not correct, or as well as testing of foods, testing of equipment, testing of machinery to make sure everything is sufficiently following the guidelines and conforming to the established rules at that time. Is there something that we can do to, not so much the cease and desist, I guess it's similar, but a moratorium, for lack of a better word, to make sure that nobody else can open up and continue doing business if it's a threat to public safety until the court injunction has been decided upon? Because I mean, it's totally ridiculous. And I am in healthcare, and I do know we have contingencies to account for this. But when something is an imminent threat to public safety, the legal process is good, but sometimes it takes a while and a little convoluted. So is there something we can do, Kevin, to make sure that we can add some bylaws in so that if it is an immediate threat and someone chooses to remain open, that there is some kind of immediate action that can be done? We can post, maybe they can stay open, but we can post signs publicly in the benefit of public interest to avoid this facility, location, whatever. Is that something that could be done? And I'll mute again and let you and try and listen. I apologize, I'm driving, but I understand the cease and desist, and I understand the legal ramifications, but we're not talking about someone driving a car with with an expired sticker, expired registration, and insurance. We're talking about things that can pose an immediate threat to public health and public safety. And I honestly think that we need to come up with some kind of verbiage and mechanism to address hopefully a non-frequent threat, but a potential threat nonetheless. So I will put you on mute and I'll listen. Thank you.
Kevin, if I can just add into that, because I think that one vehicle we currently have is the cease and desist letter, because I believe, Shannon, that that's something that we require be posted on the entrance door to the establishment.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, Kevin.
Thank you, Ray, and thank you, Dr. Buschetti. And it's a good question. So let's start off saying that the first thing we should do, and I think you said this, Dr. Buschetti, is add language to our regulations for how, so that we're directing how
give me the book.
Shannon and Michelle operate. And what the language that are in the relevant decisions suggest that if and this becomes a question of fact, Shannon or Michelle determine that there is an imminent and critical danger to the health and safety or welfare of individuals, that they can, under Chapter 111, Section 30, take immediate action to attempt to remedy that situation. Now, that is essentially, that's going to DEFCON 4 to take action without a hearing being conducted, without any kind of further due process being afforded to a business owner. So that becomes a question of fact. If there were to be subsequent litigation, what did Michelle and or Shannon use to determine the imminent critical threat to the health and safety of individuals or the citizens of the town? So as Ray said, one tool that we have is the cease and desist letter being posted. And if we were to go further, it would be an order that would be indicating that by order of in this case, the health director on behalf of the Board of Health, the business is directed to be closed. And that would be, again, assuming that we build that into our regulations, that's something that would be posted at the business. And then what attaches to that under the law would be triggering essentially an immediate opportunity to be heard before the full Board of Health.
Thank you, Kevin. Sorry.
And then, let me just add one piece, Tony, to this. The other thing that I would look at doing, similar to what Wilmington has, and I think we've done in other regulations, is that if we incorporate or accept the state regs as our local regs as well, then we can also add in a fine per violation, and each day that violation continues will be constituted as a separate violation. So the fines could quickly pile up. And while court action may take a while, hopefully the threat of monetary fines that keep renewing every day, hopefully that would be enough of a financial incentive for something to happen. And I think the other thing, Kevin and Richard, that we learned from meeting with Chief Columbus is that outside of a court order where we've asked the judge to grant the police the authority to enforce the business closure, the police really don't have anything within their statutory authority to actually close a business down.
That's correct.
And that's one thing that we wanted to be clear. Yeah.
Can I interject? Based on these times, and even more so, I mean, people, I believe, should be even more due diligent during COVID-19 times, because we've all been dealing with this for the year. My experience has been there are a lot of people that just don't get it, will never get it, and are obstinate and stubborn and ridiculous. to the point of being absurd that they don't like to follow the rules and regulations that are to the benefit of the public. So my question, Kevin, would be, if we ever encountered anyone that chose not to close, and since the police don't have any action, and we can put signs up and post it, but would it be also possible for us to notify the public through any means possible? For example, signs on the public access ways that may be surrounding avoid this business. Maybe put alerts through because we're talking about the public health of basically food establishments, and or possibly calling the local TV channels and saying, is that channel 25, whatever local channels around? Would it be possible to alert the public through other means when you encounter a person that no matter what, the police don't have any enforcement ability, they choose to remain open, and unless someone is turning traffic away or letting people know, that's what my concern is, because the last thing I ever want to see is someone get sick from something that could have been avoided. And sadly, I can see potential where just during these times we may have to incorporate very stringent regulations for such a case, even though I would hope it would be a rare and it's not probable, but definitely not impossible to believe that someone would be foolish enough to continue to operate when there's threats and they've been informed of these threats to public safety. So I would like to know, what can we do? Call it an advanced strategy plan. Is that possible to do that in the regulations without, if they want to stay open, but you can't go, you can't get them to be convinced that they should view things a little differently. Is that possible?
Kevin, Bob Scarano.
Mhm.
I will say that I have seen where a cease and desist order is posted on the building and is enforced with fines that you can't remove it from the front door, which warns everybody in advance before going in there that some action has been taken. So it would seem to me that the building code and other codes have the ability to place a placard, orange, sticky, that can't be removed, and the language on the actual cease and desist sticker says that if you remove it, there are specific fines for just removing it, which would allow us to go in immediately and get a temporary restraining order. So,
that would work, Bob.
That.
That would work.
I have seen that. I have seen that in the building code enforced in other towns, and I just wanted you to consider that as part of Tony's question. Thank you, Kevin.
And Bob, that's an excellent point, and I do think that would be what I would say would be the suggested method. Would be the posting at the access point of the food establishment that is the subject of the cease and desist. I'm not aware of anything that would authorize us to do any more than that. I think that the health code, the state health code certainly empowers us to do that, as would, I think, the general authority that we have under 111 Section 30. Taking any additional steps, I would have to look into to see if that was if it is permissible. I would say it likely is not permissible, but I certainly could look into it. And just to sort of fill out this answer a little bit, I know the intent of all of this is compliance. And what I see, and it's something that Shannon and Ray have both discussed this week, is putting a permit renewal plan in place that would do two things. One, it would essentially compel the business owners to be in touch with us and to act in a timely manner, certainly much more timely than this. And if business owners are running afoul of the timelines that we have established, that'll be a giant red flag for us, so that we'll have teed up whatever else it is that we need to seek compliance that hopefully would still be voluntary, short of having to post something at their place of business and ultimately go to court. So I do see it as being a dual strategy.
And Kevin, Bob Scarano again, there are shortcuts, as you suggest, having the renewal so close to the opening. It would almost seem that a diligent Board of Health would be creating a renewal form that almost incorporates an opening plan, either by check the box or fill in the blank or answer the question, so that the renewal form actually becomes a plan tendered by the applicant that can be reviewed by the health agent or her designee, and you could shortcut some of the problems right off the bat, because obviously the renewal plan would be geared towards the type of food operation it is, and having different food operations, they have different requirements. But it would seem to me that we have the opportunity to create a renewal application that is tailored to the type of business that is seeking a renewal, and that they could provide the information. They could provide, if they, for instance, required a testing lab, if they required some sort of third-party oversight, all of that could be incorporated into the application rather than letting it happen and be reactive. We could be proactive in that regard.
I agree. That would be a great plan.
And Bob,
I agree too. Thank you for that.
and I don't know if people are able to check their emails late this afternoon, but I had Shannon send off 2 documents to everyone, one of which was a permit application from the city of Framingham. And to your point, Bob, when you look at it, it's very detailed and it's very akin to having a business reopening plan. And I think it's a good starting point for us. And there are obviously things that we can add based on some board members' prior business experience to really round it out as a business reopening plan. But I think that would be a good one to start with. And we just see how that works and look to see at our other permits, where can we apply that same type of a design or structure to.
I think that's a good point, Ray. And to be honest with you, I know we're having this discussion at an open forum, which is right for transparency. But I think that the board might benefit from having a work session to be able to work on these issues at a single sitting on multiple levels that might advance our ability to do this so that it's in place fairly quickly, and certainly by the next application and approval process time.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And as you and I talked about that early this week, that I think we definitely need to set up a regulation working group, because we get a bunch of things we need to add, and I just want to make sure that we're
My last name spelled wrong, but
on agreement of the best way of handling that. It's both in the permits as well as in the regulation. So I fully support that idea. The other thing, and I'm sorry, I've been thinking about all these things off and on and talking to town council, town manager, and director about this. So forgive me if this is a repeat of what I already said, but one of the other things we looked at doing was, right now as everything is structured, any permit that the health department issues essentially is automatically renewed at the expiration date when the permit holder comes in with their check and any required supporting documentation. And in talking with folks, it seems like one thing that would be good that we're missing right now is that we don't have sort of a check gauge for this. So that if there are issues with a permit holder over the course of the duration of their current permit, that if it's something that the health director feels warrants having that applicant, a renewal applicant, come before the board, that we would build a process in that the director be able to request that someone come before us so that people realize once you get a permit, it's not automatically renewing. You need to keep up your part of the agreement of the permit requirements, and to at least give the board some teeth to help the department with challenges they might have with a permit holder. And then they could come before us. We could have them answer sort of the issues that are being provided to us from the health department and ask how they plan on correcting those.
Chairman Barry,
Yes.
I think that's a good plan, and I think if you incorporated a question in the renewal form that the applicant had to answer, whether or not there were enforcement actions taken against them, whether there was violations that reached critical need, and they had to answer that question, that would be obviously a notice to them that a more detailed plan needs to be submitted, or a more detailed plan needs to be submitted at an appearance in front of the Board of Health. So I think we're on the right track with the type of thought process that we have, where rather than being reactive, we're proactive in creating a format that requires complete disclosure, and even complete disclosure as to violations, so that not only the applicant knows, but the health director knows, and that application can be processed accordingly. And whether it's a process administratively or processed in front of the board, it's going to be processed in one manner or another.
Thank you for that. Yeah, no, I fully concur with that. So any board members have any questions about anything we've gone over? And obviously we'll be putting together a working group in this. But for a purpose tonight, while we have town manager and town council here, anyone have any questions or concerns about anything we have talked about? Yes, Mr.
I do have, oh, sorry, go ahead, Charlie.
Yep, okay, just one quick one. These are all, even if they are seasonal permits, seasonal licenses, these are all annual, correct?
Correct.
Why don't we give them to the end of January to process the permit? If they're not processed by the end of January, they got to come in front of the board. Period.
May I make a suggestion? I think that they should have their permits ready by the end of the year, like everyone else does. I just think it's going to help from administratively. And is there any explanation as to why these permits were renewed the beginning of the year in springtime, if someone had it? I mean, I guess if someone wasn't going to go into business, we could refund the money that year. But I think, I mean, is there some special reason why these seasonal permits were issued in this fashion?
Well,
Tony, I would just wanted to interject there. Of course, we have the most terrible situation in front of us from a standpoint of business operations, planning. People were worried a heck of a lot more about whether or not they'd even be in business come the end of this year. Certainly, there are extenuating circumstances associated with this calendar year. I take your point with great concern, and I think the work sessions would be able to work out these type of details that you're talking about, and it would probably benefit from the work session to try to tweak those issues. As a second point, I think that the work session should not only include Board of Health members, but it should include a representative from the town manager's office. It should include a representative from public safety, so that we can determine what their roles might be, whether it's just identification of people operating without licensing, rather than enforcement. So I think that a work session in that type of setting might benefit everybody, so that we can get the input necessary and the output necessary in order to craft something that is fairly reasonable and quick.
No, I think that's a great idea, Bob. And I do know I understanding the connection between our department and other departments, as well as I think we had a situation last year where a permit was supposed to be granted, but someone didn't pay, taxes weren't paid, or whatever fees are due to the community. So there was snafuing, and I was hoping that we were getting on a better footing to avoid those issues, so that when if a permit's not issued, and I also believe, and I don't know if this impacts the towns, the wording, may or shall. I know I was talking with Shannon about this. She brought up a very valid point. I think that the work sessions will be very helpful, but some of the ambiguity that I find we have been just realizing or have been aware of, but as everything takes time to get to, I think we got to get rid of the ambiguity. So I think working well together would be really great. I do have one thing that does concern, hello, Richard, and hello again, Kevin, that does concern the rest of the town, that was a concern to me. I know that if for some reason our health agent is away at meetings or ill or at a vacation, whatever those things may be, because we don't want to make our policies contingent on the potential once in a million things, but things that we have observed have become more frequent. I am wondering, in the case of an imminent critical threat, as Kevin was speaking about, that can occur, I was wondering if our health agent is unavailable for any point in time, and I guess this may or may not work. Because I'm a doctor, I have 24/7, so I never really go on vacation. But if I'm on vacation, I have coverage. But ultimately, if there's issues, it comes to me, and I do understand that. But I'm wondering, in the case of an immediate, imminent threat, for example, let's say, with some of the things you're hearing about, let's say the whole MDC water supply was affected, and I know we're not on there, but let's say we didn't have access to another health agent that was able to work with our critical situation. Should that health agent, be tied up with their own responsibilities? Do we have any mechanism to be able to make sure we have someone that's filling in? I know Michelle is the sanitarium right now, but what mechanisms do we have as a community for those particular threats that now in today's times anything's possible that could impact when we may not have the ability to access another health agent from another town because they're tied up with their own concerns? Do we have any mechanism as a backup, or do we have to delay things until for a time that sometimes time is of the essence when you have to deal with situations, and as Kevin said, an immediate critical threat. So do we have any kind of backup from the town's perspective, Richard or Kevin, so how we can deal with this should we not be able to access a potential health director from another community, so for whatever reason our director be unavailable?
So, Mr. Chairman, I can answer that.
Go right ahead.
So we do have good working relationships with the surrounding communities, and I'll give a good example. When our building commissioner has been out, the town of Billerica's building commissioner has filled in for us, conducting inspections. So if we ran into a situation as Tony described, there will be no doubt that one of the health directors from a surrounding community would come in and help us very quickly.
If I
That's
could,
even. Okay. Good.
so obviously Michelle's there for backup. And then I do tell directors that are in the area when I'm going away, so 'cause they're always there to help us. We're a close group. So they're always around, and they'll be willing to help if there's any imminent crisis that Michelle can't handle while I'm gone.
Well, I assumed we had that, and that was fine. I'm thinking of a couple of instances that that immediately come to my mind when actions should have been taken earlier, and for whatever reasons there were delays that I've seen and observed that potentially contributed to the potential for the problem to exacerbate. That's where I was coming from, because I know we could discuss it probably in our work meetings, but I just wanted to put it out there for the record right now, so that when we do discuss it, and I think we're all aware of things that have happened in the past that could fall in this category I'm describing. But thank
So
you,
Richard, Richard, let me ask you this: with your example, I know that both Director Sawyer and Director Sullivan know the other area health directors and work with them. Is everything that we have in relationship with the other health departments around us, is that more of an informal nature, or do we have any memos of understanding with any communities?
It's more of an informal.
Okay.
We don't have anything in writing. We do have, like, for instance, our police departments and fire departments will have more formal documents, but it's more informal. You know, as Shannon mentioned, she knows all the directors in the surrounding area. I'm sure Michelle does too. I know all the managers in the area too. So between all of us, we would be able to get someone to come in very quickly. If we needed to formalize something, we could look at that. But right now, it's just informal.
Well, my only concern with this one is that this was one of the more exceptions, but my concerns were if surrounding health directors were tied up with their own responsibilities in an imminent, and I threw that out as if there would be like a major issue with water or whatever, a health hazard, you know, be it biologic, be it chemical, whatever. That's where my concerns were, because assuming these agents were tied up with other situations, not that they wouldn't be able to help us, but just as, you know, our concerns for public health are first and foremost at the city of Tewksbury, as well as our surrounding communities and our state and country. But in the, you know, that's what my concerns were. Do we have an access or a formal agreement that could be arranged? I mean, even with the state, I mean, it's like you don't want to be playing musical chairs and be the one without a chair. That's all I'm concerned about. So I didn't know whether there was any kind of protocols should the unthinkable happen. But that makes sense, Richard. Everything you said makes sense, and I was aware of that. So thank you very much. But based on past experiences and based on past delays that I've seen, when I felt we probably could have availed ourselves of that expertise from other communities, I don't feel it was acted upon in that fashion, or possibly those agents were busy, because I can think of a few things that come to mind that there have been delays of a week or more since an event happened. So, but I know we can probably work on that during the meetings, and that's the whole purpose of where we are. Does that make sense, Ray?
No, it does.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Shannon.
Okay. So anyone else have anything from the board side they wanted to ask Kevin or Richard while they're on the call with us about this? So Bob, it sounds like you and I should probably represent the board on this working group, and I'll leave it up to you because I know your schedule is probably a bit less flexible than mine is about when at least we might want to plan to have at least a kickoff meeting just to sort of look at the scope of what we're planning to do.
If I'm happy to be on the work, especially for something that is paramount to my concerns based on experience. I'm happy to be involved in the working group. My schedule is a little bit restricted because of the nature of what I do, but I'm happy to be involved. I think we've got a good start here, and I just would rather see this where these working groups get together sooner rather than later, and some of these actions be implemented before there are potential problems that I can foresee happening based on past experience.
Now, my goal is to have us get these regulations updated really as soon as possible. So I would hope that we would start to have something that the board could review for our next meeting. So I think,
Yeah,
Bob,
that would
you
be
and
great.
I think, Bob, that for ease of meetings, I think if you and I were on that work group, because if we had a third board member, then now it's a public meeting. We have to publicly notice it. So we're not as flexible for when we have a meeting.
Well, that's
and then,
okay, Bob. If Bob's doing it, I know we can communicate our concerns, and I am sure at this point we'll have constant communication between all parties involved so that nothing will slip between the cracks and allow any misinterpretation of what transpires. So I'm okay with that. If you and Bob are already on there, I think we can convey that. I just wanted to offer my limited availability, but that's okay. I just want to make sure there's no miscommunications and no lack of communications at this point on with our work groups.
Yeah, no, and I would look at, Bob and myself would provide the rest of the board with an official update at our monthly meetings, and I or Bob could always reach out to other board members for their specific expertise if there's an area that we would like to consult with as well. Okay. So Richard or Kevin, is there anything you wanted to say to us just to finish up our discussion about regulations and procedures?
No, Ray, the only, Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would say is if any of the board members have any questions on any of the issues, please feel free to contact me.
Thank you. I will, Richard. Thank you, Kevin.
Yep.
I will find a mutually convenient time. Thank you.
And I have nothing further, Ray. I think this is a really good approach.
Okay, and I appreciate all the effort and attention you've given us, Kevin, because it's helped me, and I know ultimately it's going to help the town too, because we'll have tighter regulations. But as Mr. Scrum was saying earlier, the board's focus is not to penalize folks, but rather to educate. And the health department's also working to educate from a different vantage point, and more of the actual day-to-day operations of the business. So I think collectively, we're all on the right path, and we just need to, from the educational standpoint, put some education framework into some of our permit applications that would, Mrs. Scrum was saying, more of the business operation plan, the business startup plan.
No, Ray, may I add one other thing to that? I totally agree. That's the Board of Health is supposed to do. Sadly, my experience has been, I believe it's trust but verify is the protocol I go by. When someone goes into business, we are happy to help assist them to do things from the board. But as Mr. Rue said earlier, as Charlie Rue said earlier, there's a difference between not knowing and seeking help. or intentionally neglecting or intentionally avoiding. Charlie said it much better than I, and I apologize. I'm branding pretty good where I'm coming through, so I'm trying to do two things at once. And but I honestly think that when we do these rules and regulations, I can only tell you, when someone goes into business, especially, we're not talking about selling sunglasses, although plastic now, I mean, there's concerns for everything, contamination from one sort or another. But when someone's dealing, especially as long as I have tenure on the Board of Health, and I'd just like to make my feelings be known, again, I think I've been pretty clear. When someone's going to be doing something, I expect them to do their due diligence and seek out the help they need, and we are there to help them. But on the other side of the coin, sadly, again, my experience after many years has been that some people don't get it, will never get it, choose not to do it, choose to be obstinate, belligerent, and actually avoid the process that we are all legally bound by. So I do think that when we do create these workforce groups and these regulations, I think we're going to have to, in addition to education, in addition to guidance, we're going to have to make some measures that will have consequences for people, I like to say, frequent flyers, repeat offenders, people that just play dumb, and they expect to proceed further. I honestly think that we should also look at precedents over the years from people that have had businesses. I do know that if you're a speeder and you speed on the highway many times, and if you're unfortunately the one that gets caught in a lane of people driving, and you are found to be breaking the law, then whether other people have done it, that's not your concern. Your concern is to worry about yourself. I think we all have to self-monitor, and I think that's part of what we said. We self-monitor our own businesses, and that the Board of Health is there and our agents are there to help them. But should people elect not to self-monitor and just self-decide what the rules are going to be for them, I honestly think there have to be consequences that need to be addressed because public health is paramount. And if someone doesn't get it, maybe they shouldn't be in the game at all. I know multiple speeding tickets end with a suspension of one's license for a while. I know in my discipline, one infraction of any rule that we sign our license to is sufficient for serious ramifications and consequences. So I think that we need to make sure that we are going to be reviewing in the workforce group consequences, because my experience has been that we've had a few frequent flyers, and it's the same old song and dance, as Aerosmith said in their song, and I'm just not a fan of the same old song and dance. We're all there to help each other, and Charlie, if you get a chance, Charlie, if you wouldn't mind repeating what you said, just to add as an addendum to what I was saying, because I think that's good for the record for people to hear again, for how we're going to proceed from now on when we try to have our workforce groups and have our new policies and procedures for the benefit of our local community, the surrounding communities, and in the interest of public health, to avoid any possible. All you need is one mess up that can cause serious harm to people. So there's no perfect world, but we can strive for excellence and achieve close to it. Thank you. Charlie, would you just add that phrase that you've said and I've heard and I totally agree with, please?
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a difference between a mistake and an intentional disregard for policy. especially as it applies to public health. And in the case that comes to mind, a person that has over 30 years experience working in this town certainly knows the rules of the road. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Charlie.
Well, thank you for this lengthy discussion, the regs, and a lot of work ahead of us, but it'll ultimately benefit the town and businesses. Moving on, director reports. Chen, you have some couple of things listed for food consultant and Lisa's pizza update.
Yes. So the food consultant, right now, we reached out to 4 people. Some of them are busy because COVID and things, and a lot of towns are behind on food inspections. So we got one quote from one company, and we were going to move forward in hiring them.
Excellent.
Ray, may I interject on that? I had, when I spoke with you about certain, there was, I believe, some other qualified people, and I did speak with Shannon, and I requested that we discuss it at the board, and before we proceeded signing any contracts with anyone, to possibly interview a couple of other well-qualified candidates. And I just wanted to bring that in because we're in this point of discussion right now. I know you and I talked about it one day. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the board does not have any responsibility or involvement with the day-to-day operations of the health department. So that's really between.
No, I'm aware of that.
Shannon
I'm aware
Richard.
of that. I'm aware of that, but I feel that since 3 of our members and I myself am ServSafe certified for opening a restaurant and management, I feel Bob Scarano is also certified for that, and Maria. I believe it would be nice to know, we're not making a decision, but what these people actually bring to the table for us. So it has nothing to do with hiring or those decisions, but I'd like to know a little bit about what we're signing on for as an overseer for, because I go by that belief, trust but verify, and I'd like to know a little bit more about credentials of groups, even if we don't have anything. I feel maybe it comes in a workforce group or whatever, but Bob is the attorney here, so but I think that there's a way to do it so we can be aware of what we're signing on for as a board member and the parties we're dealing with. I don't think it's an unfair question.
If I could, the consultant that we're going to hire has a brief description of her experience that I could read, if that helps with anything.
Before we sign the contract, I'm driving and even hearing it fading in and out, so I don't, if another couple days go by before a contract signed, I'd like to just kind of see that. Maybe you can email it to me, please.
Yep, I can email it,
I'm
but
afraid
again, this has been going on for about 3
Yeah.
months, so we want to get this tied down before they go with some other town.
Yeah, and just for the record, the Board of Health has no involvement at all with hiring decisions made by the department. So, I mean, if the director was to share something, it would be purely for informational purposes only. So
Correct. I'm not looking to hire anyone or have any potential, but any time that we have to oversee someone, I like information. If anyone else is opposed to it, we can take a vote now or when it's done in a quorum and it can be settled. But if there's anybody that's in agreement with me, I'm okay either way, but that's my feelings on it.
well, I think the only place the board will have any interaction with this will be that once the person's brought on board, we're going to have to, I guess, appoint them as a health agent or special health agent. I'm not sure, Kevin, which we would have to appoint them as if they're sort of a contract employee that comes on board.
How long do we contract with these people should a contract come out?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Rue.
I think to Tony's point is that we're elected officials in the town of Tewksbury. We're also residents of the town of Tewksbury. And I think that Tony's interest in this matter is that, how are we spending our tax money? Where's it going? Who's it going to? And what are their qualifications? It's almost like an FYI. I mean, I know we don't have, the decision-making responsibilities, but it's a kind of a nice to know, and it's nice to know on behalf of the people that we represent in the community. Thank you.
Richard, this is CARES Act
elected
funding,
by-
correct?
So we need to determine how we're going to fund it. We were hoping to use CARES Act or try to figure a way to get CARES Act to help fund this contract, but we could figure that out. The important issue here is getting someone in to help the department. As far as the contract length, we usually do yearly contracts with the potential of renewing up to 3 years at the town's discretion. As far as issue with the board having input, looking over the qualifications, even giving thoughts on who should be hired. Those are all things I would be looking for. I'll ultimately sign the contract and make the decision, but I want the board to feel comfortable, and I want the board to feel as if we got the best company in to do the work. So, Tony, whatever input you have and whatever thoughts you have, that'd be great. Charlie, the same with you, Bob, Ray, everyone. So, Maria, any thoughts you have?
Thank you, Richard, for your understanding, and I highly respect you and appreciate your commitment and service to the town as the town manager. And my only concern in many things is we are elected by people of the town who we've earned their trust and respect. And we do live in the town, and we might be biased for it, but we only want the best for our community. And I know I speak for myself, but I feel others believe the same way, and I know you do too. I just feel that we need to have a little bit of information, because my concern during my tenure has been I find out things that I am like, we are involved to make decisions based on people's recommendations or whatever. And I'm not saying anything in regard to qualifications, but I feel that as an elected board, we deserve the ability to maybe ask some questions and provide our input to someone like yourself, to Shannon or whatever. There are other reasons that I don't want to take the time now, but I will be calling you next week, and I can share my concerns. So my gut feeling is there are a lot of qualified people out there. I know there are. So this may be a qualified group, but I don't see any. If they go some other place, so be it. I think we can find someone else qualified if they're in a rush. We don't want to be involved in any of the employment decisions, but I think we should be able to have a better understanding of who we're going to be nominating to the health board. And I thank you for that. I don't want to belabor the issue. I think you know where I'm coming from. So, yeah, if we can hold off on signing that contract and then speak about it. And if they really want to work with our town and they feel, then they'll wait. If they get a job someplace else, then so be it. That's how I look at it. There's other people there that can do the job. So if that's not bad, I can discuss it more with your posse. I'll check with your schedule next week, Richard, and see if we can sit and talk more. But thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you very much for your your receptiveness to what Charlie and I are suggesting. Thank you.
No problem.
And Shannon, what about update on Lisa's Pizza?
So their last inspection report that I have is from March 16th. And they only had one core violation, which is a minor one, and it was the mop was stored directly inside of the mop bucket. But everything else seems to be going well there. The sanitizer, the grease trap logs being maintained, the cooling, temperatures in the fridges, everything looks good. So they're doing a good job.
Good. So it's having the intended effect. That's good to hear.
Yep.
And then since Irvi is not on tonight, 'cause I'd rather she get some sleep.
Yeah.
Anything you want to update us in terms of COVID from Irvi?
So I got an update from Irby. She administered 52 vaccines to homebound and caregivers, and we got the vaccine 2 weeks from from tomorrow, I believe. And she's been going out with the fire department to administer those shots. But again, we got the J&J vaccine, so right now we're on pause doing those until we hear more from the state. Irby sent a letter to everyone that she gave the vaccine to look out for those post-vaccination complications they were talking about, and if they had any concerns there, to contact their doctor or go to the emergency room. And then she had the second clinic at the Housing Authority yesterday, as well as earlier in the month she had the senior center second dose. So that's about it right now.
Oh, good. Making good progress there. And Maria, I'm assuming that there's nothing new to report on Tewksbury Cares still?
There isn't, but I did come up with a grandiose idea on how to bring Tewksbury Cares back to life. And it's a little involved, but I did reach out to Maria to I'm going to run it by her. We're going to set up some time to talk, and I will at some point, once I sort of do an outline of what I propose, discuss this with you. But I think this could be a great thing to sort of bring back Tewksbury Cares in conjunction with the Board of Health. So once I discuss that with the two of you, I will then discuss it with Jason and Brian as well, and see if we can make this happen. So
I guess you'll leave us in suspense to our next
now.
meeting.
For now, it'll involve a
enough.
lot of recording of things, but
Okay, good.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Shannon, you wanted to bring up tonight?
I don't think so. I think that's all for me.
Okay. Mr. Rue? You know I'm calling
Mr.
you.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we end tonight's meeting. I'm hungry.
Okay. So, motion's been put forwarded to adjourn tonight's meeting because Mr. Rue is hungry. We'll strike that last part. Someone willing to second the motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I will second the motion.
Okay. Motion's been put forth and seconded to adjourn tonight's meeting. We'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Scarano? I think he may be muted. Mr. Rue?
Yay.
Okay. Ms. Cirulis?
Yay.
Chair votes aye as well. Mr. Scarano votes yes by text.
But I, Bob, too, but I would like to say thank you to Richard, Kevin, Shannon, Michelle, yourself, the rest of our Board of Health staff for the time and effort and energy that they put into it. So I vote aye, too.
I was not ignoring you, Tony. I did not see you on the screen, so must have popped out.
No,
and
that's
came
okay,
back
Ray.
in.
I didn't think you were, Ray. I'm driving and I'm going through an area that's notorious for the phone coming in and out. But I just
Well,
I also wanted to say thank you to everyone.
Okay, well, it was not intentional. So chair votes aye as well, so motions carries unanimously. You bet. unanimously. It is 7:21 p.m. So good night, Tewksbury.